The smell, that's what hits you first. Not lavender or clean linen vibes. It's beeswax, stale rushes, and the sharp, metallic tang of blood. Mostly blood. It's 11:55. Eleanor, yeah, the Eleanor, is screaming. She's the Queen of England, the most powerful woman in Christendom, but right now, she's just a body, a vessel. No epidurals, no sterile rooms, just a midwife holding a dried toad to her thigh for luck, or protection, or whatever passed for science when God was the only doctor available. She did this 10 times. 10. I freak out over a migraine. She did this 10 times. February 11:55. It's freezing, like bone-chilling dampness that crawls up through the soles of your leather boots and settles in your marrow. Eleanor is at Bermondsey Abbey. Why an abbey? Because when you're about to maybe die, and in the 12th century, maybe is a very generous probably, you want the monks singing nearby. It's a safety net, a spiritual insurance policy.
The lying-in ceremony is basically a one-way ticket to a claustrophobe's nightmare. The windows are shuttered tight. Thick wool hangings, probably smelling of wet dog and old hearth smoke, are pinned over every single gap. No drafts. The medical experts of the day thought cold air would shock the womb and close it, so they basically cook her. She's trapped in a room that feels like a humid, dark oven, surrounded by a dozen women who haven't bathed in, well, let's not guess, a while.
And then there's Henry, King Henry II. He's 21, vibrating with this manic, restless energy. He's got that ginger hair and a temper like a forest fire. He's probably out riding in the mud, hacking at bushes with a sword because he can't handle the silence of the waiting room. He needs an heir. Not a girl, a son. If she gives him a daughter, it's a political setback. If the kid dies, it's a disaster. If she dies, well, he'll just find another one. That's the math of 11:55. It's cold. It's brutal. Wait, I forgot the floor. They've got dried meadowsweet and rose oil scattered over the rushes. It's supposed to sweeten the air. It doesn't. It just makes the atmosphere thick, like breathing through a warm, wet sweater. There's a priest outside the door clutching a relic, maybe a splinter of wood from a saint's finger, and chanting in low, rhythmic Latin. Eleanor isn't crying yet. She's 32, which is practically ancient for a medieval pregnancy. She's had kids before with her ex, Louis of France. 2 girls. Louis hated that. She hated Louis. Now she's with the devil's brood Plantagenets, and the stakes are astronomical. This isn't a blessed event, it's a siege. The midwife, some woman whose only qualification is that she's survived this herself, is checking the birthing stool. It's just a wooden chair with a hole cut out of the seat. Simple. Terrifying. Actually, it was February 28th when the baby finally showed up. But right now, it's the dead of night. The tallow candles are guttering, smelling of rendered animal fat. And the first real contraction just hit her like a physical blow to the spine. No one is coming to help with the pain. Just the dark, the heat, and the sound of the monks chanting through the stone walls.
The pain doesn't roll in like waves. That's a lie modern books tell you to make it sound poetic. It's a rhythmic stabbing. It's 11:55 and Eleanor is staring at a tapestry of some saint whose name she's forgotten, and every time the candle flickers, the saint looks like he's mocking her. There are no blue-tinted hospital rooms here, no heart monitors, just the heavy, cloying scent of frankincense mixed with the sharp, acidic tang of a sweat-soaked wool mattress. And the midwives, they're hovering. One of them, old, hands like gnarled oak roots, is pressing a birthing girdle against Eleanor's stomach. It's a strip of parchment covered in messy Latin prayers and smeared with what I'm pretty sure is dried goat's milk. They think this helps. It doesn't. It's just cold parchment against burning skin.
She's 32. By medieval standards, her internal clock isn't just ticking, it's screaming. She's already had Marie and Alex with Louis, and now this is the start of the Plantagenet Marathon. 10 births. Let that sink in. 10. Without a single milligram of ibuprofen. They don't let her lie down, not yet. They want her moving. "Walk, Your Highness," they whisper. So she paces the stone floor, her feet bare, feeling the grit of the rushes. Every time a contraction hits, she grips the back of a heavy oak chair until her knuckles turn the color of bone. And Henry? Henry's probably in the hall, drinking ale that tastes like liquid bread and shouting about hunting dogs. He wants a boy. He demands a boy. The pressure isn't just physical, it's dynastic. If she fails, she's just an expensive decoration.
Wait, I need to tell you about the vinegar sponge. Because medicine in 1155 was basically just creative ways to make things smell worse. If the labor slowed down, they'd shove a sponge soaked in vinegar and pepper under her nose. The theory was that the shock would scare the baby out. Imagine being in the worst pain of your life and someone decides to pepper spray your nostrils. Absolute madness. And the chanting, it's constant. The monks in the chapel next door are hitting those low guttural notes. It's supposed to be holy. To Eleanor, it probably sounds like the hum of 1,000 angry wasps. She finally hits the stool. The birthing stool. It's a horseshoe-shaped nightmare. She's sitting there, gravity doing the work, while the midwife reaches up with hands that have likely touched a dozen unwashed chickens today. There's no germ theory. There's just bad air and God's will. If an infection sets in tomorrow, they'll blame a lunar eclipse or a sin she committed in 1142. They won't blame the dirt under the midwife's fingernails. Side note, if you're digging this dive into the gritty, unpolished reality of history, hit that subscribe button. We don't do the glossy textbook version here. We do the sweat and the tallow candles. Join the diary. Back to the room. It's getting hotter. The braziers are pumping out carbon monoxide and heat. Eleanor is drenched. Her hair, that famous reddish-gold hair, is plastered to her neck in wet, matted clumps. She's not a queen right now. She's a biological machine under immense mechanical stress. The midwife tells her to push. But she doesn't use the word push. She tells her to bring forth the fruit, which is a hilariously mild way to describe what feels like your pelvis being pried apart by a crowbar. Eleanor screams. It's a sound that cuts right through the Latin chanting, right through the thick stone walls of the palace at Bermondsey. It's a raw, animal sound. And for a second, everything stops. The ladies in waiting freeze. The priest stops mid-sentence. Then, the sound of a splash and a cry. It's a boy. William. He won't live long, only 2 years. But in this moment, on February 28th, 1155, he is the victory. He's the proof that Eleanor is fertile, that Henry is a king of virility, and that the crown is safe. But here's the thing. They don't give her a break.
They wrap the kid in linen, hand him to a wet nurse, and Eleanor? She's left there on the stool, shivering, while they clean the room by throwing more rose water on the floor. Her body is a wreck. Her muscles are twitching, and she knows, deep down, that she's going to have to do this again. And again. Richard, Geoffrey, John, Matilda, Leonora. She's a factory for empires. Think about the recovery. There is no maternity leave. There is churching. She has to stay in a darkened room for weeks because she's considered unclean after the blood of childbirth. It's this weird, misogynistic limbo. She's the most powerful woman in Europe, but she can't enter a church until a priest sprinkles her with holy water and says she's not gross anymore.
I wonder if she sat in those dark rooms, listening to the rain against the narrow windows, and thought about her life in Aquitaine. The sun, the poetry, the freedom. Now she's in gray, damp England, tethered to a man who treats her like a prize mare. Every one of those 10 births was a coin toss with death. Every time the contractions started, she had to look at her ladies-in-waiting and wonder if they'd be the ones to sew her shroud by morning. Puerperal fever was a silent assassin. It didn't care if you were a peasant or the Queen of England and Duchess of Aquitaine. It just wanted a host. Actually, let's talk about the blood. They didn't have pads. They didn't have postpartum kits. They used old rags. Rags that were washed in lye and hung to dry in the wind. The sheer lack of comfort is what gets me. We complain when the Wi-Fi is slow or the coffee is lukewarm. Eleanor of Aquitaine pushed out the future King of England while breathing in the smoke of rendered animal fat and listening to people pray for her soul because they honestly didn't think she'd make it to breakfast. And she did it 10 times. It wasn't just physical endurance. It was a psychological war. She had to stay sharp. She had to manage her lands, her sons, and her husband, all while her body was being constantly reshaped and exhausted by the demands of the womb. The sheer grit. The next time you see a statue of her, or a painting where she looks calm and regal in a blue silk gown, look at her hands. Imagine them white-knuckled, gripping the edges of a wooden stool in 1155. That's the real Eleanor. Not the crown, the struggle. Wait, did I mention the wine? They gave her caudle. It's a mix of warm wine, eggs, sugar, and spices. It was supposed to strengthen her. It probably just made her nauseous. But in a world without morphine, a cup of spiked eggnog was the best they could do. She survives William. She survives Henry the young king. She survives the Lionheart. She survives it all. But the room stays the same. Dark, hot, smelling of vinegar and fear. The door stays shut. And Eleanor of Aquitaine, the woman who ruled half of France and all of England, sits in the shadows, waiting for the bleeding to stop so she can go back to ruling the world. It's brutal. It's 1155, and it's a miracle anyone made it out alive. Push. Just push. The air in Beaumont Palace is a humid soup of tallow and unwashed bodies. September 1157. It's Oxford, but the room feels like the inside of a furnace. Eleanor is 35. In the 12th century, 35 is the absolute twilight zone for a uterus.
Most women her age are already under a headstone. This is her 6th. The midwife, let's call her Agnes, because history didn't bother to record the names of the women who actually did the work, has hands that smell like vinegar and raw chicken. She's elbow deep in the Queen of England. Forget the tapestries. Forget the Plantagenet glory. This is meat. This is bone. The caudle, that nasty wine, egg, spice slurry they forced down her throat, is sitting like a lead weight in Eleanor's gut. She gags. A string of bile hits the floor. No one wipes it up. There's no time for optics. The pain isn't a wave. Waves suggest a rhythm. This is a landslide. It's a jagged rock being dragged through a keyhole. The shoulders, Agnes grunts.
The baby is stuck. A malpresentation.
In 1157, this is where the priest stops praying and starts looking for the burial shroud. You can hear the guy in the corner, Brother Thomas or whatever, mumbling the extreme unction. He's already counting her as a corpse. Eleanor looks at him, through the sweat, through the haze of a 3-day labor. She wants to kill him, seriously. If she had the strength to reach her dagger, that monk would be a memory. Her hands are clamped onto the bedposts so hard the wood creaks. A splinter drives deep into her palm. She doesn't even feel it. The internal demolition is a bit louder. "Now!" she screams. It's not a regal scream. It's a guttural animal sound that echoes off the stone walls and probably scares the hell out of the guards 3 hallways over. The sensation? Like her pelvis is being pried apart by a crowbar. There's a wet, sucking sound. A pop. The world tilts. Everything goes gray at the edges.
And then, the heavy, metallic smell of fresh blood fills the room. It's everywhere. It's soaking through the layers of linen, dripping onto the rushes. A silence so heavy you could choke on it. Then, a thin, sharp cry. Richard, the Lionheart. The future king is a bloody, screaming prune. But Eleanor is still on the rack. The bleeding won't stop. Agnes is frantic, pressing cold rags between Eleanor's legs, shouting for more wine, more moss, more anything. Eleanor's eyes start to roll back. "Stay," she tells herself. Or maybe she's just thinking it. "Stay. The kingdom is yours. Stay." The room is fading. The tallow smoke is winning. She's slipping. Wait. No. Not yet. She isn't done with this world. Not by a long shot. She didn't die. 10 times she walked into that meat grinder of a bedroom, and 10 times she crawled back. Most women were dust by 30. Eleanor? She hit 82. In an age of rot and shitty water, that's not luck, it's spite. Pure, cold spite. She outlived the kings. She outlived almost every child she nearly died for. It's a cruel math, really. All those screams, all that blood, just to stand over their cold tombs at Fontevraud in 1204. Finally, she stopped. History is a messy bitch, isn't it? Subscribe if you like the dirt. If not, whatever. I'm going to go lie down.